The first exercise that we will demonstrate is the gastrocnemius calf stretch that targets the upper, more superficial tissues of the calf as well as the Achilles tendon. For this, we will place the board next to the wall. As we step onto the board, we make sure we bring our heels all the way back to the wall, as well as making sure they remain down on the wall. We make sure our hips, butt, lower back is against the wall. We also make sure our upper back is flush with the wall as we straighten the knees to feel a deep gastrocnemius stretch as well as an Achilles tendon stretch. In order to advance this exercise, we can simply increase the slant on the board by raising the level on the slant board to make the stretch and the exercise more intense. We will simply again step on the board, making sure heels are all the way back to the wall and down to the board, not raised up, to get the biggest gastrocnemius calf stretch as well as stretching our Achilles tendon. The next exercise that we will demonstrate is the Soleus calf stretch that targets the lower, deeper tissues of the calf muscle. For this exercise, we will place the slant board slightly away from the wall and use the wall for balance and support as we put our arms on the wall. We would place one foot on the board, raising the other foot off the floor, bending the targeted knee forward past the toes to get that great stretch in the back of the calf soleus muscle. The next exercise that we are demonstrating is the big toe dorsiflexion. For this exercise, we simply place the big toe on top of the slant board, trying to keep the first metatarsal on the floor, and as well as trying to get the outer four toes down to the floor. If the stretch is not big enough, we can simply walk our big toe up the slant board to increase that stretch. All our toe, foot, and ankle exercises could be done with the addition of the toe spacers. For example, the big toe dorsiflexion exercise with the toe spacers can be seen. The toe spacers add that extra space between the toes that intensifies the stretch and the work that the toes as well as the intrinsic foot muscles have to endure. The next exercise is slant board heel raises that helps us increase the strength, mobility, stability, as well as the range of motion of our ankles. It will also help us strengthen our calf muscles. We will place the slant board slightly away from the wall. As we step onto the board facing the wall, we can place arms and hands on the wall for stability and balance. We will use and rely on the arms as little as possible, but as much as needed. We will then raise our heels up onto the ball of the foot, and if we can, all the way onto the toes to increase the intensity, not just the ball of the foot, but all the way onto the toes. And then we control the heels back down in an eccentric, slow, and controlled manner. The slant board heel raises can be done in 3 different positions. The main or first one is toes pointing forward or middle position. Second one, toes turned out, where we raise our heels and move mostly to the outer 4 toes. And last, third one is toes turned in towards each other. As we move up, we are mostly moving on to the big toe. Once we are advanced enough, and we can do the slant board heel raises without the help of the wall, we can simply increase the load again by going to a single leg heel raise, where we take one foot off the board, raise our heel up, not just onto the ball of the foot, but all the way up onto the toes, and control that back down. We can repeat the exercise again in all directions. Toes turned out, heel raised, where we move mostly onto the outer 4 toes and control the heel back down. We can also repeat the same exercise with the toes turned in, the third position, where we raise our heels off the board and move mostly onto the big toe, controlling the heel slowly and eccentrically back down to the board. And as always, with all the exercises with the slant board, in order to increase the range of motion and intensity of the exercise, we can simply raise the level of the board, increase the slant, and use it for the same exercises. The next exercise that we will demonstrate is going to be the tibialis or toe raises that works the muscles in front of our shin. We are going to place the slant board slightly away from the wall so we can put the hands on the wall for some support, heels on the slant board and toes on the ground. Then we will lift our toes towards our shins, closing the angle on top of our ankle, getting toes as high towards the shin as we can, relying on the hands on wall as little as possible and as much as needed. In order to make the exercise harder or more intense, we can step higher on the slant board and repeat the same thing. Again, hands used as little as possible. In order to increase the intensity or make the exercise even harder, we can, as always, increase the level on the slant board, increasing the incline, repeat the same exercise with more intensity and harder. The next exercise that we will demonstrate is the ankle inversion stretch. We will set the slant board slightly away from the wall and step onto the board sideways with our outside foot, then leaning inwards with our tibia and knees to get a stretch on the outside of that foot, making sure the outside of the foot on the board remains down, contacting with the board. As we lean to the side, we can have the foot down on the floor, shoulder into the wall, or just have our arm on the wall with our weight on the foot and ankle to increase the load and stretch. The next exercise that we will demonstrate is the ankle eversion stretch. This time we will step onto the board sideways with our outside foot and making sure the inside of that foot on the board remains in contact with the board as we lean our tibia or knees outward, getting a stretch on the inside of the foot, ankle. Again, relying on the wall for support. And as always, we can increase the level of the slant board to make the stretch more intense, whether it's for ankle inversion or eversion. The next exercise that we will demonstrate is the VMO squats or vastus medialis oblique squats that will target the inner part of our quadricep muscles. We will place the heels on top of the box and toes on the floor, letting our knees flex forward past our toes, sinking into the deepest possible position we can for our squats without rounding our back or tucking our pelvis under. Again, trying to keep the upper body torso as upwards and straight as possible. We can make this more intense by stepping higher on the slant board or increasing the slant board level and repeating the same exercise. The next exercise we are demonstrating is the barbell back squats with our heels elevated on top of the slant board. The elevation of the heels allows us to bypass our ankles dorsiflexion limitation, which allows our knees to flex forward more, helping us sink deeper into our squat position without putting too much pressure on the knee and the ankles. Again, we will place the heels on top of the box, toes on the floor, and repeat our regular barbell back squats with our heels elevated. The next exercise we are demonstrating are the toe lifts or the toe cars. First exercise, we're going to keep the outer four toes down while lifting just the big toe up, making sure the arc of our foot is not collapsing and we're using the intrinsic or bottom of the foot muscles. Next, we're going to keep the big toes down on the floor and just the outer four are lifting up and back down, repeating this 6 to 8 reps each side. The next part of the exercise is lifting all 5 toes up and just bringing the big toe down without the other 4 moving down. Last one is getting 5 toes up and piano key outside to inside, putting 1 toe down at a time. Small toe to the big toe down on the floor. The next exercise we're demonstrating is the big toe dorsiflexion PAILs rails, where we keep the first metatarsal or ball of the foot on the floor. Big toe is up on top of the slant board. We start to push that big toe down, ramping up to a max effort, making sure the bottom of the foot and the intrinsic foot muscles are working, pushing that big toe down, hammering it down for 15 seconds consecutively. As we get to 0, we will reverse and try to lift that big toe off the board with max effort. And again, we maintain 15 seconds of this max effort trying to lift. So that's a max effort, 15 seconds hammering down and reversing for 15 seconds, lifting up. The next exercise is the big toe dorsiflexion lift-offs in the same position with the toe on top of the slant board. We will attempt with the top of the foot muscles to lift off the big toe off the board while maintaining the outer 4 toes down on the floor for anywhere between 8 to 12 reps. The next exercise is the big toe adduction. We will have the toe resistant band around the big toes, squeezing each big toe away from the other one, adducting towards the outside, 8 to 10 reps for each toe. The next exercise is the big toe dorsiflexion using the toe resistant bands. We will choose the band with the proper resistance for us. Pull the band and the toe up into dorsiflexion, going against the resistant bands, hammering the toe down into the floor, making sure the bottom of the foot, intrinsic foot muscles are working. The next exercise is a restricted big toe dorsiflexion. We will have one band pinned down under a heavy weight and pin the other side of the band under the ball of our foot or the first metatarsal. While maintaining that pressure into the red band, we use the other band to lift our big toe up to dorsiflexion, go against the band and hammering it down. Each rep, making sure we don't let the red band snap away because we are contacting the ball of the foot, first metatarsal, onto the floor.